When people say landlords need to be abolished, who are they supposed to be replaced with?
The people I know that say this focus on the, often foreign, mega-corporations and hedge funds that own entire neighborhoods and massive developments. If they were forced to sell, rather than lease, the market would be flooded, and prices would become affordable to most. I don't know if the math actually works out for that, but it's what people are advocating.
Opinions vary. Some people expect the state to provide affordable housing. Others seem to assume that without anyone owning multiple residences, property values will be low enough that everyone can afford to buy housing. I lived in a coupe apartment building for 5 years. It was like a regular apartment building, but no one owned it. It was run by a board comprised of residents who were elected by the other tenants. There were other outside admin people to help with accounting and stuff, but there was no landlord. Apartments were not priced to make profits but to provide housing. It was pretty great.
Generally, replaced with individual loaners. So each person owns one home, instead of one person owning hundreds and others none.
Basically, if people can afford to pay rent month after month, they can pay a mortgage. But they aren't given that opportunity because they can't save the necessary down payment. 20% down on your parents' $75K house was one thing. 20% on a $600K fixer-upper in today's market? Everyone is a renter.
I really despise this all or nothing rhetoric we have adopted.
I think a distinction should be drawn between massive rental management groups, hedge funds buying up tracts of houses and condos as speculative investments, and people with like one extra house they rent out. Two of those three are massive parasitic groups, and one is just people with an extra house.
Landladies.
Property is currently used as an investment vehicle. Investment vehicles are meant to increase in value forever, indefinitely. This leads to endless cost increases after the initial investment has been made beyond what repairs costs. The landlord does not price their goods based on cost, it is based on how much they think they could get. Further, the mortgage that was used to pay for everything, well, those banks never had any real capital. It was all printed out of thin air with the permission of the government.
It was not years of hard work saved up by the bank and they took a risk. They quite literally printed the dollar out of thin air and charge you a percentage for years. Landlords could be limited to how many units they are allowed to own, which would greatly reduce corporate competition for homes in the market since regular folks don't have corporate dollar. That would bring housing prices down simply due to far less cash available to individuals. Also, simply let the government dictate a % rent based on the value of the property and median incomes of the neighborhoods.
Often seems to be social housing, which tbh I've a lot of time for. Regret the vandalism of Thatcher, who made a virtue of home ownership by passing lot of state assets into hands of private sector at very discounted rates. Rationale was to give lower-income residents access to the housing market and reflect long periods of renting with money from sales and fewer maintenance bills paid back to the councils for new building. That never happened, and most of the privatized houses were sold on at a profit to landlords with a portfolio of properties. There are good reasons not to own a house: temporary dwelling, high maintenance, etc., and can see the benefits of things like Peabody Estates or council housing. Bulk ownership allows cheaper and more timely maintenance as they retain full-time teams. Houses tended to be well built and priced according to running costs rather than land values. Edit though will add, it is and always has been a lottery to get one because scarcity of houses has always been an issue in bigger cities with rising populations. So people will still get denied, but not because they can't afford it but because they score on points. No children, not vulnerable, or in past their moral attributes. They had to be cleanly, hard-working, etc. Seems like it would be a hassle to buy a house everywhere you live. There should be an affordable and temporary option for people that don't want to do that. In a system where I have no issues paying $1,800 a month for something that isn't mine but can't get A mortgage that would only be $1,000 a month and own it. Clearly the system is broken. I personally have less of a problem with corporations owning apartments as long as they are all filled. It is this random land ownership of buildings with zero people inside them when there are so many houseless people who could have shelter if rent was cheaper. Same with office buildings.
Homeowners.
Renting a home isn't a terrible idea in principle. But when it's only done because people richer than you have bought up properties for the sole purpose of making them richer and ensuring poorer people can't afford to buy, this is a problem. Good one. People I've heard complain have basically included all forms from corporate to just a person that owns a few rental units. It reminds me of people that complain they lost their job to some immigrant group. Instead of being angry at their employer, they are angry at the person that said yes to the job. Hear people complain about affordable housing when they should be complaining their jobs still don't offer fair compensation and benefits.
Sea Lords.
It's silly. There are points in my life when I wanted to be a renter. I know due to work projects or relationships I would be in an area for 1 year or maybe only 6 months. I in no way wanted to be burdened with the hassle of buying a home or selling it in a year. It can take over a year to sell a house sometimes. I think the general idea here is to think of housing as a human right. In the same way as healthcare and education, they should not be seen as centers of profit or a scheme to flip and make a quick buck. Once you approach it from that standpoint, things like corporate ownership of thousands of homes with automatic rent increases far beyond what people are earning becomes a lot less defendable. Singapore has a tax scheme where a person buying a home is taxed at a very low rate. But if they buy a second or third home, the rate quickly increases. Corporate entities have an extremely high tax rate right from the start. This puts the focus on making it easier for individuals to own. In the end, landlords shouldn't go away, just be well regulated. I kinda like the Austria socialized housing, though I think it's for only so many buildings and has not been expanding. I am not an expert on the subject, but I'd be interested in that system.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.